What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the JP Podcast. Today we have Kristal DeSantis, licensed marriage and family therapist, author of Strong, which is a book. Is it for couples, but also men, primarily?
So, the model that I use in my therapy practice, the Strong model, I use with couples, but the book I wrote specifically for men.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Shane obviously was going through your book. We had a great conversation about that a little while ago. So you wrote this primarily for men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, just kind of how you got to this point, who you are a little bit for the audience, and then we got some really deep questions to go to.
Okay. So actually, as I was telling Shane, I started becoming a marriage and family therapist because I was out there in the dating world, kind of casually dating, and then I met my husband. I met him on a dating app, and we went on a date. We went to a rodeo. He took me to my first rodeo, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really like this guy, and I really want this to work. And then I realized I had no idea how to make that happen. I had no previous long-term relationships. I really didn't even feel like I had any relationship skills. So I immediately Googled help, and I found a marriage and family therapist, and I started going to therapy, and I started learning, emotional regulation skills, relational skills, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I want to learn how to do this. And I learned for me, and then I ended up doing it myself.
And it worked out because you guys got married.
Yes, and we're still together. It's been 14 years.
Congratulations. Yeah. What a great story.
Yeah.
So most people go to get therapy when there's problems. You went just to get direction.
Yes, because I, coming from my background, I think maybe like a lot of people, I had parents who, they were really good parents to me. Like my mom was great for me and my dad was great for me, but together their marriage wasn't great. They weren't good partners to each other. So I kind of, when I started dating, I was like, maybe when you find the right person, it just happens. Magically, I don't know, you get the download of relationship skills. And so when I met my husband, I was like, where's that magic download? And, the feelings were there, but the skills weren't. So. Interesting. Yeah.
I think people say the honeymoon phase, so 2 years, whatnot. And then at that point, they start to argue more. And some never develop the skills. That's kind of the way that they live their life. And then some do, unfortunately, as a consequence.
Totally.
Most of the people that you work with, are they coming to you because there is a challenge in the relationship?
I'm starting to see a shift. I'm starting to see younger couples, whether younger in age or just younger in their relationship. I've seen couples that they're like, we've been on 3 dates and we know that we want to make this work, and we recognize that maybe we've had previous relationships that ended badly, or, just after some self-reflection, I realize there are things I want to do better in this one. So I'm seeing a shift there, which is really awesome. People that are coming in proactively rather than reactively, which is great because it also helps make my job a little bit easier, right? We're not starting with crisis.
But are those people that are finding you because they were already on that journey, or these are people that when you're first having a conversation with them, they're like, we're more aware of this now because why? Why is that awakening happening in society, would you say, if it's happening?
It is. It really is. And I think it's, just the realization that love is not enough to make a long-term relationship work. I think enough people have saw, maybe their parents really loved each other, but they struggled to make a marriage work, or they, have friends that, again, they went to these beautiful weddings, and then a couple years later, they're struggling because of life, and they just don't have the skills to make the relationship work. And then, of course, social media, and there's just a lot more awareness now that, being in a healthy relationship takes a lot of work, takes a lot of dedication, takes a lot of skill. It doesn't just happen by magic. And so I think it's a combination of people having personal experience, but also the culture is changing. That marriage is something, and long-term relationships are something to take seriously and to invest in, because they really matter.
And that skill, is that what STRONG stands for? That acronym? Are those the skill sets? Okay. Yeah. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. So, I wanted to create a blueprint of, when you say, what's a healthy relationship? You can ask your neighbor and they might be like, oh, bring each other flowers every day. You ask your grandparents, they're like, oh, just, don't go to bed angry. But I wanted to kind of...
You do hear those things.
Yeah, which are great. But I was like,
or she's always right,
Totally.
but they're not helpful necessarily long term.
Well, they might be like additions,
Sure.
right? Like nice to haves, but what is the foundation, right? And because that's really what I was seeing is that, people can be nice to each other, but if they don't have these 6 elements, like we've kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit, if that makes sense. So the 6 elements that, when I was writing the book and doing my research and working with couples, it really lovely kind of fell into place to be this acronym. But so S stands for safety. If we don't have safety in a relationship, we're just going to be constantly in conflict, right? We need to be able to be safe emotionally, physically. We need to have stability. And then T is trust, right? If we don't trust our partners, there's always going to be, a little bit of micromanaging or, fear of betrayal, which causes a lot of insecurity in relationship. The R is for respect, right? Just feeling like your partner looks at you as someone to be influenced by, right? And they respect you, they respect who you are, they respect your values, is really important in just having a healthy relationship. And then O is for openness, right? Continuing to be curious about each other and have a relationship where you can be honest and talk about anything. N is for nurturing, which, if you're going to build a family together, if you're going to have a business together, if you're just going to be your best selves, we have to be nurturing each other, right? And that's something that you have to do very intentionally. And then G is for generosity, which that's the fairy dust. That's the don't go to bed angry. That's the, get your partner flowers just because. That's the send them memes because you think of them. And so that's really what I saw is, we have to start with safety in order for the generosity to do what we hope it's going to do, which is
that the core? Did you start with safety because it's the foundation?
Absolutely.
So when in relationships, can you give us an example, like when people feel unsafe and what you do to help them feel safe?
Yeah. So I break safety down into really 4 components, what I call the 4 S's of safety. The first S is self-awareness, right? When people are not aware of their own patterns or what they're bringing into a relationship, they're just they're constantly causing chaos because they're not even aware of what they're doing, right? And then you have 2 people that do that, and it's just a cycle of conflict where nobody really feels safe. So self-awareness is the first thing. The second is basic skills of stability. I work with so many couples where they're just trying to figure out how to make a life work, right? They don't have basic skills of, finances, house cleaning, child rearing, and those things can actually really impact the way that you feel safe in your home, with your partner. So that's the second S of safety. And then the last 2 are really the communication and conflict skills. So the third one is self-regulation, right? What happens when you get upset, when you get angry? Do you know how to regulate your body when you're in conflict? Or you got hurt by your partner, something they said, what do you do? How do you regulate so that you can have a healthy conversation? Because then the last S is self-expression, which is really just those communication skills. Do you have the language to talk about your emotions? Do you have the words to describe your internal world and your internal experience? I say in my book, you can't ask for what you don't know you need. And so some of that is just expanding your vocabulary. So all of these are really just skills for safety. But if you don't have them, you can see how they can cause a lot of issues.
When you do counseling with somebody, do you have an inventory so that you can identify which of these they have a challenge with, or do you just start at the beginning?
I start at the beginning.
Okay.
And again, obviously I recommend people read my book before they come see me if they're interested in working with me so they can kind of understand. But, even in just communicating, I always ask people if they come in as a couple to tell me the story of their relationship. And so as I listen, I can start to identify okay, what are the patterns? Maybe they have a pattern where they lack stability and that's why they're in constant chaos, right? Or maybe there's a pattern of lack of self-regulation. So every fight they have just, spirals out of control. And so, it can be both. I'm working on a more concrete assessment because I'm working on some courses coming up. But yeah, right now it's really just kind of that conversation and assessment.
So safety, trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if somebody doesn't feel safe, they can't trust that person.
Exactly. And that's that's exactly what I saw. Is so many couples would come into therapy identifying that they had a trust issue, right? Like, my trust was violated, something went wrong in, the communication that we had, and I feel betrayed. And there's a couple of things with that, right? Like you said, you cannot trust somebody you don't feel safe with. So if we don't have that layer first, it's going to be kind of working against yourself to try to build try to repair trust if you don't have that foundation of safety. So that's often where I see couples, come in with a trust violation when actually it's a safety issue. Like, you are not even self-aware of, why that was a need that you asked for, or why that was a thing that you did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a book called "The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team" that Patrick Lencioni wrote, and his number one dysfunction is a lack of trust. Right? Because number 2 is fear of conflict, and you can't have conflict with somebody where there's not underlying trust with that person.
Totally.
You're like, I don't trust you enough to bring it up to you, or I don't trust that you're going to care, or whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you, so do you see that a lot of people need to rebuild, let me go back a step. The biggest problem that you see in relationships, is it self-regulation? Like, if...
Self-regulation is a big one.
Or what's the most top 3, if there is?
It's actually really interesting. As part of self-awareness is what I've started to identify is, the culture of relationships has changed very quickly in a very short period of time. In the past, relationships in a lot of ways were kind of function-based and transactional, right? It was just expected that at some point, the music stops and everyone picks a partner, right?
Yeah, get married, kids, clean the house, take care of the family.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's really that first piece of self-awareness. And kind of like you said, you can't have conflict with somebody if you're not sure why they're in the relationship with you, right? Because it's a risky conversation to have. It can get ugly. So what I talk about, part of that self-awareness piece and creating safety in a marriage, is, are you here because you need this other person to fulfill some kind of function, or do you actually want to be with this other person?
That's powerful.
And, so it's like function or connection. Why are you here? And so that's often the most kind of foundational, powerful conversation that a lot of couples start with. It's like, wait a minute.
And you see that it went from connection to function?
Yeah, that happens so frequently. Because again, also you meet someone in college or in your 20s, and it's easy to connect. You're like, you like this band? Oh my gosh, so do I. Or you like long walks on the beach? Oh my gosh, me too. And so you find connection. And also in the beginning of a relationship, it's not uncommon to have long, deep talks where you really get to know each other, right? But unfortunately, our brains are just giant pattern-seeking machines, right? So at some point, our brains kind of get lazy, and we're like, I already know this person. Moving on, right? And that's where often then function starts to take over, right? It's like we lose the emphasis on connecting with the partner, and instead it becomes the person I do life with, which is, sure, that's an aspect of a long-term functioning, healthy relationship. But when that becomes the only aspect, right? And that's where I often get couples coming in. They're not in active crisis, but they're like, we just feel like roommates. Like, we haven't really had a deep conversation. I don't even know what this person likes anymore, right? Like, now we're in our 40s, and maybe they like the same band, but I don't know. I haven't really had a conversation with that person in a decade, right?
So I find that somewhat challenging at the same time, because if you know that person and that person isn't changing, if you're both not changing, right, and you kind of know, I know everything about the person, let's just say that that's the case, then it's well, what else does that person then need to go say, man, I need to really grow and you need to grow, so we both need to grow, so then we have something to talk about?
Sure.
Do you see that people just stop having something to talk about because they feel like they already know each other enough? Or
I think so. I mean, there's an assumption.
And I don't want to put that in your mouth, those words out there, but what's the reason that people stop connecting?
Because in a lot of ways our culture doesn't, and again, it's changing, right? But for a long time, the marriage, it was central to a family, but it was the life that was built was the reason for the marriage, right? Does that make sense? Like, it wasn't just about the connection of the two people in the marriage. It was like, what are your kids need you. You have a house together. You have a business together. You're part of the community. And so I think just what I see often is it's not that people stop growing, right? I mean, honestly, you kind of have to work hard to stop growing, right? Because like, you're going to be challenged in your career. Maybe your child hits the next stage. You're going to grow. It's just couples stop communicating with each other about their internal experience of that, and they only talk about the logistical experience of that.
Why?
It's in a lot of ways, it's the way that our culture has normalized that as what a marriage looks like, versus couples that really still deeply connect about the who are we questions and the who are we to each other questions, and how has parenthood impacted you, and how are you connected to your body now before and after pregnancy, and how has your experience of pleasure in your body changed, or what are you dreaming of these days, like that's not as
do you feel
normalized.
like, so do you, going back to your conversation on skills, do you feel people just don't have those skills?
Sometimes it's about they don't have those skills, or they don't have the structure to even have that conversation in their marriage.
So in our world, we do a lot of existential thinking and planning and conversations and theory and psychology per se in business. So a lot of the times, I'm aware of like, hey, what's going on inside of me, what's happening, and I'll try to engage my wife in that. But if I take my business experience out, I've never seen that depth of a conversation happen modeled, right?
Totally, yeah.
I have amazing parents who have been married 40 plus years, just a great example to pull from, right? But it's not like, hey, here's how you have these structured processing.
Totally.
Here's how you ask more in-depth connection-based questions.
Absolutely.
Like I think like people are not trained on how to teach that.
Absolutely.
And so if I don't talk to somebody that's a licensed marriage family therapist, where do I get that?
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I think that's kind of what like the modern relationship is figuring out what that structure looks like. But we're in this interesting kind of space in our society where in the past, like the idea that your husband's your best friend, that's ridiculous. He doesn't want to hear about what I'm going through. And same thing with, sometimes that stereotype of like, I'm not going to tell your mom that, right? Is that it was much more kind of siloed, right? And of course, there are exceptions, right? There are couples that have had those conversations, but for a lot of people, they didn't see that modeled. And so right now, the modern couple trying to find a scaffolding for having those conversations, it is kind of coming to therapy, starting early before things get bad, right? Like setting yourself up for success from, day one, or premarital counseling. I do a lot of premarital counseling because I think really that's what's shifting, is that awareness that in order for us to be successful later on when times are hard, we got to start setting up our steps for success now when we have the bandwidth to do that.
Is part of the premarital to like help that person identify if that's the right partner for them, or is it to see if they're ready for the relationship?
It depends. It depends on the couple's goals. Right?
Okay, got it.
Some couples, they just want a really structured conversation around, let's talk about parenting, let's talk about finances, let's talk about family of origin, let's talk about sex. And then other times it is that like, because that's a different type of counseling that I do called discernment counseling, where maybe people have maybe they've been together for a bunch of years, but they feel like they're kind of on and off. And they're like, what is preventing us from taking that next step? Right? Or maybe like one person is pushing towards, let's lock this down. And the other person's like, I don't know. And so I also facilitate those conversations as well of like, let's lay it all out there.
Do you have people that come to you that have already had a therapist before, like, or they're currently with another therapist, but they're not getting the breakthrough that they need? Like, do you see that often or no?
Yeah. Part of the niche that I kind of developed in becoming a marriage and family therapist in Austin was I would sometimes put myself out there as like, I'll work with the highly distressed, high conflict couples. So I did start getting sometimes the couples that maybe they'd been to a few different counselors and, it was like, all right, we need something else. Do people stay with you when they do your counseling? Like is this like a
ongoing relationship? Is it like, hey, we have a problem, let's fix it, cool, I'll see you in a few months, or I'll call you next time we have an issue, or how's that work?
Yeah, so, part of the kind of fundamental way that I approach counseling and therapy is from an attachment perspective, which, obviously therapy is a relationship, right? As a therapist, I have to form a relationship with the client. And so I really, the way I work is I really like to be client directed. So when they first start, I want to make sure that we have enough time together to get to the root or get, whatever goals they need accomplished. But then, I kind of leave it up to them of like, if you want to, just check back in when you need another, another meeting. And if that's in a month, if that's in a year, if that's in 5 years,
And is it mainly, would you say it's mainly women that reach out to you? Would you say it's
both?
It's both.
Yeah.
Percentage wise
now.
though.
Percentage wise, I think just overall, women tend to be the ones kind of, taking a lot of the lead. But specifically for me, I think because of the niche that I've built, I do get a lot of men reaching out and then men referring their male friends, which, men like to have that referral network. So I right now I have a mix of both, but generally seeking therapy is overwhelmingly female.
Yeah, because there's like the stigma is if you need therapy, you're broken or something's wrong with you.
Yeah. And also that's changing as well. I am seeing a lot of men proactively reaching out to seek therapy with me, but also with other clinicians, which I love. And that's part of why I called my book Strong, and that's my model, and that's my practice, because I really want to see it as like a strength-based approach, right? It's not something you do because you're weak or anything. It's something you do to get stronger, like going to the gym, right? It's like in the past, the only people that went to the gym were either serious bodybuilders or it was physical therapy, right? And now it's like, well, I go to the gym because I care about my health and I care about my body and I want to be fit and I want to, be able to do the things I want to do. And I love that therapy is starting to get a little bit more of that reputation. And that's how I like to kind of position myself as well is, I'm...
And what do you do when you see, like, when, let's just say one partner reaches out to you, guy or girl, and the other partner is not as open? Because I've seen that too, where I've talked to, like, well, are you open? I'm open, but she's not. Or I'm open, but he's just not open. He won't go to therapy with me. Anything I do, George, like, like, what do you do when one partner is not open? How do you advise that person? How do you help that other partner be open to it? Do you have a conversation? Do you have these scenarios that come up?
Yeah, absolutely. If possible, I always try to get the other person on the phone as well to try to understand, like, what is the hesitation, because sometimes it is that stigma, right? Of like, I don't think we're that bad. I don't think we need therapy.
Is that what you hear when you're looking for or trying to identify the hesitation, or what are they?
Sometimes it's that, right? I don't think we're that bad. I don't think we need therapy. I think we can figure this out on our own. The other one is simply, I've never been to therapy. I don't even know what to expect, right? Is like, why should I choose therapy? Why can't I just go read a book, or why can't I do something else? And then sometimes it's legitimately that they're not sure if they want to work on the relationship, which, okay, that's valid. But then I always encourage, if there's like one partner who's like, I've been trying to get my partner to go to therapy for, so long and they just don't go, is, there's work you can do individually as well that could help benefit the relationship. And then also, sometimes you can then model what the benefits of going to therapy are, right? If you are also then coming back into your relationship and, you're handling conflict better, or you're, being more understanding, or you're having better boundaries, then maybe your partner will eventually be like, oh, that's pretty cool. They're learning some stuff. I want to learn too.
So when you do therapy with one person, are you more like, let me identify what the issue is and then how I could coach that person in the relationship since the other person's not there? Is that the approach that you take there?
Yeah, I mean, with individual therapy, it's very different, right? It's not necessarily about helping the relationship. It's about helping that person in any capacity, right?
Okay.
But that's a totally kind of its own thing.
Okay.
Right? There's individual counseling and then there's couple counseling.
Okay,
so
you do both.
I do both. But in couples counseling, basically what I say is the relationship is my client. So neither partner A nor partner B are my clients. The relationship is my client. And so, I'm going to call out partner A if they're getting in the way, or partner B if they're getting in the way, because the goal is I'm working on the connection in the relationship. Whereas individual client, it is, partner A or partner B, what they want.
In that, I've done a lot of mediation, let's say, in two of my agents. Like, they're upset with each other. One broker with their agent, or two different brokers, or two agents. And I've done it in the past where I'm like, so what did you do? Okay, what did you do? Okay, well, that was wrong. Well, that was wrong. And like, I find like it's not helpful. So years ago, I'm having a conversation with these two, and it happened by accident. And I was like, so what do you feel that you did wrong? And what do you feel like you could have done better? And what do you feel like you did wrong, and what you could have done better? And now that satisfies that other person. It's like, yeah, I'm pissed. I just want you to admit you effed up, or whatever. It satisfies like that ego part.
Yeah.
And it makes that person take ownership of their mistake instead of saying where that other person was wrong.
Totally.
What advice, maybe, I don't know if that's how you do it, but how do you make the relationship work on the relationship? Are you saying, hey, you could have done that better? Or are you asking, are you telling them? Are you having them talk to each other more? What does that look like?
It could be all of the above, but really, what I always want to go back to is, who do you want to be in this relationship, and are you being that person, right? And that's where it really goes back to holding yourself accountable, right? Because the relationship, I'm not going to tell you how to have your relationship, right? I'm going to give you the skills to be the person that you want to be in your relationship. But that's always where I kind of throw it back of like, sure, we can do the tit for tat of like, well, they started it. Well, then what I said was what, like you said, it's not very productive. And so instead kind of going back, and that's why I always do start with that. What are we doing here? Like, are we here just because we're, trying to fulfill a transaction with each other? Are you just here because, this is the life that you're trying to create and you don't really care about the other person? Well, if so, then like, I guess that's how we're acting. But if you actually care about your partner, is that evident in the way that you just showed up in this fight, in this conflict, and just really calling in back to your own values? Like, who do you want to be as a husband, as a father, as a wife, as a partner in this relationship? And are you being that? And if not, can I help you?
Got it. So it's important for them to be able to identify
100%.
that. Yeah, that goes back to that one of the first S's on self-awareness. Okay.
Yeah.
So most people, when they come in and they do work with you, do they have an idea already kind of who they want to be, or you see that they haven't really thought about that?
Sometimes, it's kind of all over the map. Some people haven't thought about that at all, right? It's like, oh, I thought this was what I was supposed to do. Like, I woke up, I got married, and, I went to school, and, it's like, for a long time, we didn't really give people the freedom to write their own life scripts, right? It's like there are cultural scripts that people are supposed to follow. And so sometimes there are some people, of course, that come in to see me, and they are very self-aware, and they're like, I just need the skills and tools. And then for other people, it's a little bit of both. They're like, I never even thought about who I want to be as a partner, as a married person, as a spouse, as a parent. So that's a good mental exercise. I should probably think about that, right? And develop my core values and my core mission statement around who I want to be. Because then that really guides you, right, in the relationship.
And when somebody says, like, I'll hear this, like, we just fell out of love. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah. I'm like, that's kind of the nurturing piece of like, yeah, anything dies when it's not watered or tended to, right? And like, love is a living thing. So yeah, if it's not tended to, it will die. And I guess that's where I've also seen couples where they're like, well, how do we bring it back? Like, we didn't want it to die, right? We want to know how to bring it back. And so as long as there's that dedication there, it definitely can. Like, you can revive love, you can bring it back, you can nurture it, back to health. And then there are other people that are like, well, the love is dead, and yeah, I don't really want to do the work to bring it back. Like, let's just call it quits.
What do you do at that point right there?
And sometimes that's the healthiest thing, right? It's like, if somebody recognizes that the work they have to do to bring that love back in the relationship is not a job they want to sign up for, then, that's honesty. And having that conversation can also facilitate a more respectful separation and divorce process than fighting for somebody to care when they really don't, when they're really just not there anymore.
And that kind of leads into respect part of it in your book.
Yeah.
When you say respect, when you write about respect, what do you mean by that?
There's two parts that I talk about is self-respect, right? Because often what I see too is, conflict when people are acting against their own values, right? They're like holding their partner to a standard that they're not embodying. And so they're kind of in a little bit of inner turmoil as well of like, I'm not the person who I want to be, but I want other people to think I'm that person. And so that can cause a lot of inner conflict. So there's a self-respect issue, right? Again, you want to be proud of the person you see in the mirror.
And go a little bit deep. Can you say that again or just go into it a little bit deeper?
Yeah.
The self-respect part where you're like, you said you want somebody to see you a certain way, but that's not really who you are.
Yeah. And that, that inner conflict where it's almost like then you have to wear a mask all the time, right? Because you're trying to project this image of who you want to be, but then on the backside, you kind of have this secret nagging like imposter syndrome that like, that's not who you are, that's not how you're showing up. And that can really erode your sense of self-respect, right? Because when you look in the mirror, you're like, that guy's a liar, right? Which again, like just basic mental health stuff, that's not very good for your mental health.
Sure.
Right? And so that's often a piece of like, if you want respect in your relationship, we do have to start with, well, do you respect the person that you are? Are you showing respect not just to your partner, but also to yourself in the way that you're, asking for your needs to be met, setting appropriate boundaries, treating yourself like a person, right? And this is something I actually saw with a lot of men is, sometimes this idea that men don't have needs. Like men are just like, go, 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 and they can just give and, they're always ready to be that guy. And then I would hear on the back end, a lot of guys are like, that's killing me. Like I'm drained. And then now I'm resentful because I don't have anything left to give, but I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to say like, I'm tapped and I need to set some boundaries here. Right?
And then the other part?
The other part was, about respecting other people, respecting their boundaries. And I talk about like commanding versus demanding respect, right? Is like one of the things that it showed up in the research that often when men talk about like what do they want in a relationship, even above love is respect. Right? It's like I want my partner to respect me. I want them to look at me and be like, that's my husband or that's my guy. That admiration and all of that. And so part of that is, well, are you acting in a way that also shows that you respect other people, you respect their boundaries, you respect the impact that you're having on them, because that's the kind of person that people respect, right? People respect a leader who is going to act in a way that makes everybody feel safe and makes everybody feel respected. It's not just about showing up and demanding, respect me, because,
And for people that have lost that respect, right? Because sometimes I'm assuming at that point there are relationships where it's like one person's been disrespectful, the other person's been disrespectful. How do they start building back that respect?
It's twofold, right? So again, first that inner piece of like, can you take accountability for the places where you maybe violated your own values and acted in a way that you weren't proud of, and can you own that, and can you offer repair for that? And that actually builds a lot of respect. Like you said, like, can you name what you did wrong? Can you name what you want to take accountability for? And then that creates the environment of mutual respect where then, okay, now we can work on it because we've at least named that.
And we've read a book called Love and Respect, which talks about that. You know, that men want to be respected, women want to be loved. Is that a common theme that you see in your counseling?
I feel like it's the same word in different languages.
Okay.
And sometimes I talk about this with the word respect for women and men is, respect for personhood versus respect for authority. Right? So are you asking for your partner to respect your authority? If so, is that your actual setup? Like, is that what the agreed upon arrangement is, that you are the authority? And if not, then maybe that's why you're not getting that respect, because you're trying to assert authority over somebody who's like, you're not the boss of me, right? Or is it about respecting autonomy and personhood and individuality and, the fact that you both have things to bring to the table?
Got it.
Yeah.
And then opening?
Openness, yeah.
Openness. Okay.
Yeah. So that's, again, like, it's interesting how many couples that I see have maybe never had certain type of conversations, like you said. Like, maybe they talk about all kinds of things. They talk about the kids. They talk about, what's going on in Austin this weekend. They talk about all kinds of things. But the emotional openness to have those deeper conversations, the more vulnerable conversations, is really what help people grow together rather than apart, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Where you can have like great conversation with somebody that you just met and you're like, I know so much about them, but I don't feel connected to them because our openness was very surface level. And unfortunately, I see a lot of couples where their openness is kind of surface level, but they don't really connect around the hard stuff of life. Like,
so how do you help them go deeper?
Well, obviously it starts with creating that environment of safety, trust, and respect. Sometimes I talk about, or actually in my book I have it kind of divided into two sections, right? Is you can't ask for honesty if you're not safe, right? So the STR kind of foundational pillars are really just about helping a relationship survive. If you don't have safety, trust, and respect, your relationship is just going to struggle to survive. But once you have that, that's where we can have these open, deeper, more emotional conversations. And then the ONG is about thriving. It's really about building on this foundation and taking your relationship to that next level, right?
Okay.
So
the openness goes back to the survival part.
The openness is really the thriving, is taking it to that next level of like when you feel safe with someone, you trust them and you respect them, then you can be open with them about maybe the more vulnerable stuff. Like, life is long, right? If you're going to be with somebody for 60, 50 years and married, you're going to go through changes. And having the type of relationship where you can go to your partner and be like, I'm really unhappy in my job, or, my mom is sick and I'm really affected by that, or I'm not sure if I want to have another child, or, I just learned about something that I'm just like, it's like it's lighting up my life, or, I realize I want to quit my job and, start this other thing. Like, all of those conversations can be really risky if you don't have this kind of foundational structure of safety, trust, and respect. But when you do, you can have all those great conversations. You can dream. You can, you don't have to leave your relationship to have the openness that we all, I think, crave in our lives.
Got it. So more so like the STR is the Maslow's laws of needs, on your basic needs being met before you can start thinking about emotional,
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. And then the what's the difference between the nurturing and the generosity? Like, how would you identify the difference there?
Yeah, nurturing is it's really about, so I guess generosity is where I like to think about it as like the extras, the fairy dust, right? The like going out of your way to get your partner something nice just because. Whereas the nurturing is that intentional, every day, how am I showing up to keep my relationship alive and thriving? How am I showing up every day as a parent with presence with my children? Whereas the G is kind of like the extras, right? The sparkles,
What are a couple things that somebody could do to nurture their relationship more?
Yeah.
On the husband side and on the wife side, unless they're the same, or if they are the same, what are the same ones, 2, 3, and then what are different ones?
A lot of the nurturing is getting to know who your partner is. I talk about in there the difference between maintenance and nurturing, and I think that's where there is a little bit of a gender divide, where it's like, oh, guys are good at maintenance, but women are better at nurturing. And I'm like, wait, hold on, right? Like, what if we could all do both, right? Like, maintenance, sure, it's like checking things off a box and making sure that you're checking in on a schedule. But again, if we're thinking about a marriage and love and connection as something that's alive, then we need to nurture it. Maintenance is not enough, right? And I talk about, like, if you maintain something on a schedule, like a car, right? I take it in every blank miles and get the oil change. I take it, blah, blah, blah. But when you're nurturing something, you have to kind of pay attention every day, right? Like, you're like, nope, I fed you yesterday at this time, and so you're not getting your next meal until this time on this day. Like, it doesn't work when it comes to living things, children, animals, marriages. So one thing I do that's very simple with couples is I call it the heartbeat exercise, right? Like keeping the emotional connection of your relationship like on track and beating, is check in with each other every day about a point of pride. So that's the up, right? A point of pain, which is the down, and then a point of pleasure, which is the connector, right? And so every day, just kind of nurture that little like heartbeat. What is your partner proud of today? And then give you and them an opportunity to like cheerlead each other, right? Hey, you're amazing, right? And all of those little moments that sometimes kind of get lost, just put it back in there, because that's rich. You can get a lot out of that. And then the pain part, I think a lot of people are scared to talk about things that are painful or hurt, physical, emotional, all of that. But having a safe place to share that with your partner and having that normalized, that, your pain is safe with me. I mean, I might not be able to take it away, but I can sit with it. I can give you, reassurance. I can empathize. I can hold you. I can tell you it's going to be okay and that you're not going to go through it alone. And then the pleasure, right? Again, so many couples, they don't have conversations about pleasure. Pleasure is more than just sex. It's, what is turning you on these days, like in life, in love, in, what is bringing fun and joy and pleasure into your life. And again, that is something that is so rich for connection, because you can find out so much about your partner by asking those 3 questions. And, it takes 15 minutes. But that's what I talk about. Like, it's like the multivitamin.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
What were you prideful of? What was a painful moment? And then pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to, I could understand the, hey, this happened, it was great today. Hey, this happened, it was hard. The pleasure part, I'm a little bit more confused, obviously, on what,
Yeah.
that more of just, because that's in the day, right?
Yeah.
What was good, what was bad today? Because I'll ask my wife that, how was your day, babe?
Yeah.
What was a good part, or what was something that was hard today?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really talk about the pleasure piece on a daily basis.
And that's something that I started to identify, right? Because there's lots of, there's like the rosebud and the thorn and the onions and the apples, or the highs and the lows, right? A lot of people talk about that. But what I noticed is that, especially for men, being asked specifically about what they were proud of can be, first of all, a really difficult question to answer. But it can also be then helps, what I see in couples, it helps them feel that respect, that they then feel seen, right? That they were like, I was actually like, I did something really awesome. And then to have that experience with their partner being like, babe, you're amazing. Like, I am so proud of you. Like, hell yeah. Again, it just puts that little like, zhuzh in the relationship.
Yeah.
And then the pleasure. So again, part of, as I've been working with a lot of couples, I started to identify this lack of conversations about play and pleasure. And that's something that, if you think back on, like, what do people do when they date?
Yeah, they play.
They play and they have a lot of pleasure.
Yeah.
And so when couples come and they're like, we're not feeling as vitalized, as connected, I'm like, well, where's your play and where's your pleasure? When's the last time you had fun together? When's the last time you had a conversation that wasn't about, logistics, kids, finances, blah, blah, blah? When's the last time you just had fun? And then when's the last time you really asked each other about pleasure? Because again, bodies change, things change, tastes change. And often, I do sex therapy as well. So that was something I would hear couples come in and be like, we just don't connect that way anymore. It starts to feel like a chore, or, I feel like I get rejected a lot, and so again, just normalizing these conversations of every day, checking about pleasure. Maybe today it's your wife's like, oh, I just saw the prettiest butterfly. And maybe the next day it's, I found a new store that I'm really excited about, or a new article. And then maybe the other day it's, I liked what we did this morning, and I really like this thing that you did. And so again, just normalizing the conversations that pleasure can take a lot of forms. And also for men, just being like, yeah, it doesn't have to be like mind blowing, but can you name what gave you pleasure? Like, what in your life is like making you feel good? Because that's also, I think a lot of men tend to sometimes fall into this very like utilitarian view towards themselves. Like, yeah, I hit my macros, and like, I hit the gym, and like, good job me. It's like, okay,
yeah,
but
it's a checklist.
What gave you pleasure? Like, and so again, just kind of getting you back into your bodies for the couple as
That's
well.
good. And do you do that through asking, when you're working with them, to help them discover more pleasure areas?
Mm-hmm.
Is it more so like, hey, what do you guys enjoy? What do you guys like to do individually, together? Are you doing that? Are you playing?
Mm-hmm.
Are you having fun? Do you have time for yourself?
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
Okay.
A lot of that. And, sometimes even just with this little heartbeat exercise is creating the space. And that's what I say with couples therapy is like, it's 1 hour a week. Or, sometimes I do extended sessions, but like at the end of the day, my job is to teach you the skill and practice it. Like I'm like, this is your emotional gym. Like I will run you through your paces that we can have this conversation a couple of different ways, a couple of different times, so that you can use it in your life, in your marriage later on.
Do you have a lot of singles that you counsel? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about 60-40.
60 couples, 40
and then 40 singles. Yeah.
Okay. And what advice do you give to people that are like running a business, super busy running a business, and their parents and their kids, and you're like, dude, I'm trying to get it done, and like I'm giving my best that I can. I just don't feel like it's enough. What do you do in those situations?
Yeah. And that's tough because that's a lot of people these days, right? Life is moving very, very fast. There's a lot of things on a lot of people's plates. And so, it's hard, but some of that is if you do have time, make sure that you're present for that time, right? And so often what I see is, yes, people are busy, but they also try to multitask. It's like, yeah, I'm sitting with my wife and trying to have dinner, and I'm also like waiting for a business email. And it's like, might be that first step is make sure that when you have time, you are fully present for that time. And it might only be 5 minutes that you have, but make it quality. Yeah, because until we can slow the world down a little bit, but that's also where coming back to that, what do you value? If I was an alien and I just looked at your life and I asked what's most important to you, would I be able to tell by looking at your day? And I think that's also something to call attention to, is that sometimes people have this like image of who they are, like I'm a family person, I value my partnership more than anything, and it's like, okay, well, where's the evidence of that in your life? And I can't do anything about that except to call your attention to it and say, what do you want to do about that? Yeah, and some people can restructure their whole day and be like, wow, I could take a whole lunch and just go to lunch with my partner every day. But not everybody has that. And so it's like, even if you have 5-10 minutes, make it quality, be present.
Got it. Okay. And then what about couples that are in business together? We have a lot of couples where like the husband and wife are always around each other and they're always talking business.
Yeah.
And then even when they're at lunch or dinner, and it's not like a negative thing per se in that moment, because they're getting after their dreams. So I don't discourage it.
Sure.
But the consequence of that is that their relationship unconsciously takes a back seat.
Yeah.
Now don't have that intimacy or whatever it is that they're looking for, and now they're not performing as good as they could.
Yeah. And again, that's a little bit of a challenge, right? And I always just say, like, can you turn it off? Right? It's like, yeah, if you're in business together all the time, can you turn it off? Because to be able to say, all right, let's put our, CEO hats aside and let's just be, Bob and Jen. And then what are Bob and Jen going to do tonight for fun? Or this weekend, right? As opposed to, CEO and CFO. And so I think just also kind of acknowledging that, like, we all have different parts of ourselves that need to be nurtured, different aspects of the way we want to show up in the world. Make sure one is not taking over your whole life.
And then you said something when we were talking right before we started the show on, I try not to be the therapist necessarily in my room.
Oh, in my marriage?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's my job, is like when I come home, I have to turn off the therapist and turn on the wife, and sometimes that's hard, right? Again, like it's
and I bring it up because that spouse, wants to like grow the business, or wants to help that other person.
Yeah.
And they want to like, well, we should do this better. You should do this better. And they stop necessarily being that person's husband or that person's wife first.
Totally. And that's, again, where it's like, it's good to have both skills, but make sure you can switch between personas. And I have couples that are the same, and it's like, all right, which hat are you wearing right now? Co-founder hat or husband hat? And make sure your wife knows which one you're wearing.
That's funny. So, and why did you choose to, I know you take the concept to couples, but why did you choose to focus on men?
Because when I was working with couples and I would I would offer referrals. I'm the kind of person that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many books I can recommend and all of that. But I really found that just for kind of proportion wise for the resources that were out there, there are just so many more relational resources directed towards women, and a lot of the resources directed towards men are business. And that was where I was like, there's this big gap here. I mean, when I actually started looking at putting my book in some bookstores, there wasn't even a men's relationship section. There was a relationship section, and it was overwhelmingly books for women. And my book actually ended up in a couple of different sections, it's like, and so I think just identifying that, like, men who want to be successful in their relationships also deserve specific skills and tools directed and speaking to them. So, that was my hope.
One of the questions Shane and I had talked about, or he wrote down here, was misconceptions about masculinity. Does your book cover that, or do you talk to people about that?
A little bit. So in the beginning part of my book, what I talk about is, that in the past, for a long time, the idea of masculinity, especially when it came to relationships, was a man's job is to be the 3 Ps: be the protector, be the provider, and give your wife a baby, be the procreator, right? And so I think some of the misconceptions is that, like, men are okay just performing and not really being full people. And that's not true, right? Men are people, men are humans. They have a lot of different, hopes, dreams, goals, struggles. And so I think that's some of the misconceptions about masculinity, that, like, men just need jobs. They don't need all the emotional stuff. Like, just point them in a direction and give them a tool and they're good. And so I think that was one of the big misconceptions that I speak about that a little bit, is like, because what I saw was men would then be, very lost when, let's say, they were the financial provider and then they lost their job, or they, wanted to protect their family and something happened and they couldn't, like their wife was in a car accident, or, their son got bullied at school. And they, it kind of shakes, like, well, then how do I be a protector? Right. And the same thing with the procreation. It's like, is it just about, performing sexually, or is it about pleasure? Is it about also then raising your children and being a fully present parent? And what is your legacy when it comes to that? And so I think, just maybe like complexity is maturity. And I think in the past, the conversation about, like, masculinity and femininity is, like, very, like, almost like black and white. Right? Like, men like this, women like this, men are like this, women are like this, and never the twain shall meet. But really, and this is where I also kind of come from an Asian perspective of, like, it's the yin and the yang, right? It's like the balance, it's the complexity, which really is maturity, right? It's like when you can embody all of it to whatever aspect that makes you feel good as a man, then that's where I've seen the most powerful, like, men being embodied in their own masculinity. It's like, yeah, I get to make my own rules, And
do you do something with EMDR?
Yeah.
Okay, that was a question Shane brought up.
Yeah.
What is, I looked it up, and I'm like, I have no idea what this is.
So it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it's not talk therapy. It's kind of different.
Eye movement.
Desensitization and reprocessing.
I have a hard time saying that word. Okay.
Yeah.
Desensitization. That's probably messed it up.
And reprocessing.
Okay, what is it?
Oh, it's a trauma therapy modality.
Okay.
That is super effective. So basically, there's so much, like, obviously it's a whole field of study. But basically, part of, the population I love working with is first responders and veterans. And often those populations, they have, sometimes trauma that they've been exposed to. And whether or not it becomes full-blown PTSD, having a modality that kind of helps your body reprocess those old memories so they're not stuck, right? Because that's kind of the classic PTSD, is your brain is not really able to distinguish between past and present, right? So, like, you're at a neighborhood barbecue, somebody sets off a firework, and suddenly you're back in Baghdad, right? And that's, like, really distressing. And so EMDR, what it does is it basically, again, like, there's so much science behind it, but with using eye movements, it stimulates both hemispheres of your brain, so bilateral stimulation. So it can use eye movements. Some people use tapping. There's lots of different ways that it can be used, but we're stimulating both hemispheres of the brain to reintegrate and reprocess that painful memory that is stuck in trauma.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a bunch more questions as to what that
It's
looks
so
like.
good. Well,
If,
again, it's,
like 30 seconds, like what does that even look like? Are you talking to somebody and you're...
so what we would do is, and again, so if somebody has an acute trauma, so let's say they were in a car accident and now they just like, they break out in sweats every time they sit in their car. They just keep picturing themselves, you know, going to that intersection and having that thing. And so what we would do is, you know, I would set up, so that's the target. We'd talk about kind of like what's the core stuck piece of it, and then I would just guide their eye movements.
Guide their eye movements while they're talking about it?
While they're talking about it, and then your brain and your body, it's kind of like patting your head and rubbing your tummy. If you think about it too hard, it kind of like, you know, but yeah, it allows them to reprocess and it desensitizes that memory. So, you know, sometimes, again, with an acute trauma, it can, you know, help resolve it in a couple of sessions. And if it's with a deeper, more complex trauma, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but...
You've seen that happen, like start to finish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which I
my
love.
My skepticism kicks in. I'm like, you want me to move my eyes while I talk about something, but I'm not a doctor or you know, this is your field of study.
Well, it's bilateral stimulation.
Bilateral, so it's not my eyes, but it's my brain. But
yes, it's
moving
your brain.
my eyes activates the brain.
Yeah, so some people, they do, you know, if the eyes don't work, they can do audio stimulation or, you know, tapping, bilateral stimulation.
And the thought behind that is what is that? How does that help you get rid of that trauma in your brain? What's going on?
So, I guess, you know, crudely, right? Very, very simply, because this is a complex, is when trauma happens, it's basically like it overwhelms your nervous system, right?
Okay.
So generally, when you have an experience like throughout the day, you know, when you go to bed, your brain puts things away, right? It like files things into like memory keep, memory throw, you know, the Inside Out movie, right? It's like memory, yes, core memory, throw away, you know, which actually REM sleep is rapid eye movement sleep, right? And that's the deepest part of sleep. And again, this goes into the science of sleep. Why do we sleep? Why do we need it? We know that when people don't sleep, their brains overload and all of this. So also this researcher that developed it, she noticed that when people were talking about distressing memories, their eyes would naturally move side to side. And so that's why she was like, okay, there's REM sleep or there's rapid eye movement. There's like when people talk about traumatic experiences, their eyes kind of naturally move. Also like equine therapy and like, you know, there's like something very like naturally soothing about like you know, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, and like what we do to babies, like just naturally. There's something about rhythm and anyway, so all of this is where then she was like, okay, so when we have our nervous system is overwhelmed, it's like the file cabinet gets dumped over, our brain doesn't know what to do with these memories, so they kind of just get stuck laying on the desk. And with EMDR, it's basically like, all right, let's address all these papers that got all dumped out because of all this traumatic experience, and let's put them where they go. Let's file them away.
Okay. And then one of my last questions on here, I probably got a couple more, is what's trauma-informed therapy? Is that what that is?
That is a modality, but trauma-informed therapy is basically the awareness that we are not just floating heads in the world, right? I think there are some people that come into therapy where they're like, yeah, you know, sure, I had a childhood, or yeah, my parents were, you know, abusive, but it doesn't affect me. Like, I'm up here now. I can logic my way out of anything. And trauma-informed therapy says, but your body went through that experience. So now, you know, we got to understand what happens, like when your partner yells at you, or when there's, you know, some kind of conflict situation, or you feel disrespected. It's not just what happens up here, because your body responds way quicker than your brain does, because that's how we're wired.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so trauma-informed therapy is normalizing that, right? It's saying like, that's what's happening because there's a history that's been imprinted on your body that maybe your brain doesn't want to know is there, or maybe it doesn't even realize is there, but your body is reacting. And so let's talk about what's happening in your body. So that's also a big part of the work I do with couples is, you know, when we even just come into session, is just checking in with your body. How is your breathing? You know, are there any points of tension or activation that you're bringing into session? You know, and if so, are there any emotions attached to that? And often, you know, people are like, you know, I'm just like all bunged up in my stomach because I'm really nervous, you know? So we all kind of know like what happens when our body is in conflict with what our mind's experience is, right? Where we're like, no, I really want to be confident, but your body's like, I don't know, man, I'm pretty scared. And so trauma-informed therapy is saying, like, let's include both, right? I hear what your brain wants, but your body is like, maybe you're operating on two systems. So let's get it on the same page before we start to try to move forward. Because that's also where I see people get frustrated, right? Where they're like, I know I can do this. I know I can do this. And I just keep like getting in my own way. And so that's where also a lot of shame can happen. Because it's like, am I not smart enough? Am I not strong enough? Am I not disciplined enough? And it's like, maybe there's something else there that needs to be addressed first so that you can then like go where you want to go without this like kind of internal push-pull.
Got it. Yeah, I've had to overcome a lot of things where it wasn't through therapy just to make it in the business per se.
Sure. Yeah.
I know that maybe one of my weaknesses is I put that on other people. Like, dude, just get it done. You know. Mm-hmm. And it's anyways.
Yeah.
It pissed me off. No.
But that's again where it's like there's always a why behind behavior, right? And so that's also where my approach is like that. Like I hear that you really want to. So let's figure out why you can't. Right?
Are there people that you've done work with that they're stuck mentally and like they unconsciously want to be stuck to like have an excuse to stay in therapy or have an excuse to like not actually do the work? And I ask that because I coach a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we'll figure it out. I mean, next issue. We'll figure that one out next issue. And then I'm like, this person is always having some kind of emotional issue that they have to work through and they never do the job.
Yeah, and that's where I think the trauma-informed perspective is, what is it that feels safer about being stuck that doesn't allow them to move forward? Right?
Okay.
Because again, you know, like when you're, I mean, there's so much around this, right? But it's like, if somebody is constantly kind of being stuck, that's where, again, it's like, maybe there's something that feels safer and a little bit more manageable about this narrative than there is about this other narrative. Yeah,
it could be, for our guys, it could be that they're easier struggling and living in that because they know it.
Sure.
Than actually, overcoming and succeeding and then being responsible.
Yeah. Yeah. And so again, it's like, well, it's just, I think that's that trauma-informed perspective of like, because what I believe is like people want health. People want fulfilling relationships. And so if something is blocking that, there's a reason, right? Because otherwise, I think if everyone could just snap their fingers and be the best versions of themselves, like I think they would, right? Nobody likes to struggle. So if they're still struggling, there's something there that's preventing them from getting what they want out of life. So it's my job to be like, okay, let's look at that,
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you, last I guess question or two here.
Sure.
When you first started learning this for your own relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're like, wow, this is a passion. Would you say that's your passion?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you say, this is my passion. I want to help people. Mm-hmm. Where did you start? Like, what was your first step? Was it, I'm going to go get certified?
Well, I went to get my master's degree.
Okay, got it. So that ended up saying, hey, this is now going to be my profession.
Yes.
Okay.
So first it was, I'm really interested in learning about this, like for myself to benefit my life and my relationship. And then it was like, wow, I think actually a lot of people might not know what I'm learning right now. Maybe I could, be part of the change. And so that's when I went and got my master's.
And your master's specifically was in?
Marriage and family therapy.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So when somebody says I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, does that mean that they have their master's in that topic?
Yes. So, a licensed professional counselor, licensed social worker, licensed marriage and family therapist. These are all master's levels degrees.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you go get your master's, you learn it. Do you have to wait till you get your master's and start practicing that?
Yeah, there is like the last year of your studies, there is then the like the practicum and internship piece of it where you do then get to meet with clients as part of the graduation requirement. But yeah, so I graduated in 2014 with my master's. And so since then I've been working with couples and people.
Okay. Yeah. So it's 10 years. Congrats on your 10 years.
Yeah, thank you.
What is the difference between a life coach and a therapist?
just kind of functionally, it's that education piece, right? Anybody
Okay.
who's a licensed therapist generally has at least a master's, if not maybe more. Whereas life coaches, they could have a variety of accreditations, certifications, educations. It's just a totally different like label.
Got it. Do you do workshops for like couples? Like, have you done that, or do you think about doing that? Like, like a 1-day event, or
Yeah,
it's more
this
one-on-one?
well, that's kind of where I'm moving into in 2025. Is more of that like workshop, intensives, retreats approach, because as much as I love one-on-ones, it's just sometimes not enough time, right, to really
Sure.
get into it. So and also then just broadening the reach a little bit.
Awesome. It's been great. I look forward to going through this and recommending it. So thank you, Kristal, for being
Yeah.
on with us.
Thank you.
We'll put all your contact, so if your contact info when we post
Okay.
the video and whatnot. So guys, if you're looking for a book, Strong, a relationship field guide for the modern man. So this is more for men.
Yeah, and of course, if their partner wants to read it with them, and they can have a couples discussion. I've found a lot of couples like that approach as well. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Hope you guys enjoy the video, the episode. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.